What's going on, guys? Happy hump day! So I get a lot of people asking me what exercises I do to grow my glutes and what I do on leg day. So today is your lucky day. I'm gonna film a glute workout for you guys, which should actually be really interesting considering I stubbed the hell out of my toe 2 days ago. It's definitely black and blue. Funny story, I had my movers move my stuff and they kind of like just randomly put this weight in front of my door. And so yesterday, 2 nights ago, I get up to go pee and literally crack my toe on this weight and hit the ground. Like I fell to my knees. Like I thought I broke it. Who knows? It could be broke. Anyway, it's black and blue, but I am determined to hit legs. So let's see what we can do. All right, guys, before we start, we're gonna start with some activation exercises and some dynamic stretching. No sleepy butt syndrome here. All right, let's get into this workout. So first thing, I was talking about sleepy butt syndrome. So some people have problems activating certain muscle groups. So what we're doing here is basically we're doing exercises to promote muscle firing and activation. So that's going to give you a better contraction and ultimately better results. So what we're going to do here is first start with a band walk. You can see I'm holding the bands here to create more tension, and basically I'm stepping on the bands. We're going to do a band walk here so I can fire up those lateral muscles. We're going to fire up the abductors, and then we're going to move to some hamstrings. So next we're going to focus on the hamstrings. Here I'm going to do a hamstring kickback. You guys can use whatever type of resistance you want. I'm using a red resistance band. It goes up to about 40 pounds of resistance. So what you're going to do is loop it through your foot. Make sure it's nice and snug. And then notice I have my other leg holding the band down with my knee. And then you can use your hand to hold your band in place. And then simply what you do is you're going to drive up with your heel, activating your glute and activating your hamstring. Shoot for about 20 reps. Alright, moving on. So next we're going to do a reactive exercise. So here I'm going to focus on explosive fibers with a elevated glute bridge on a Boxy ball. So the goal here now is to focus on explosive movement pattern, driving up through the heel, and the other leg is going to hyperextend here. So what I'm actually trying to do is focus on a stretch at the top of that motion. So this is a really great exercise to activate those glutes and really focus on starting strength also. So typically before I start my workout, I'll do probably 15 minutes of work on activation, fiber engagement, and then also dynamic stretching, which takes us into our next phase. So now we're going to focus on some dynamic movement patterns. So dynamic stretch is simply a controlled stretch through a full range of motion with continuous movement. So basically what I'm going to do here now is focus on a lateral swing, and I'm focused on stretching out the adductors inside the legs. So my adductors are typically pretty tight, so I like to warm them up pretty good. Always make sure you guys warm up. So a good way to think of it is like this. Think of your muscles as like a rubber band. What's going to happen if I have a cold rubber band and I try to stretch it? It's obviously going to snap, so that can be like your muscle fibers. So what's going to happen if I have a warm rubber band? I want to have better elasticity and better stretch. So think of that when you guys do your warm-ups here. So we're going to focus on our lateral movement, lateral swing. I'll usually hit about 20 reps each side here. And then we're going to move into the hamstrings. Typically my adductors and my hamstrings are pretty tight, so I have to do a little more work to get those fired up, but we don't want to pull any muscles. Alright, now it's time to get into this workout. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is show you guys a riser here. So the reason I'm using this for my RDLs is, remember I talked about my toe, so I really don't want to put pressure on my toes, so I'm actually elevating my toes. This is actually going to give you a better stretch and engagement of your hamstring, especially since mine are kind of tight. I always like to raise them up a little bit. You guys can also use like 10-pound plates, just put them on your toes so you can focus on getting better recruitment through the hamstring. I ain't never scared like bone crush. Boy, I got God, don't fear none. My line busy, take no calls. Feels like I don't have no flaws. Snakes in the grass, cut those off. Yo, squad shitty, my bros. So the first overload movement we're doing here is a dumbbell RDL. Now when I do these, since I'm going heavy here, what I typically like to do is as I go down, I'm bringing the weights in front of the knees, and as I come back to the top, I'm bringing weights to the side. So that's going to take pressure
off the hamstring. So it's going to allow me to focus on explosive movement to the top, kind of shut it off, and then re-engage it. If I was going lighter, focusing on time and retention, I would probably keep it in front of me so I could focus on a continuous stretch. Now, when you guys do this movement, you want to focus on keeping your shoulder blades nice and tight. I make the money that save up. 10 to 80, my savings. Take to the top on the baseline. New car, race on, fast lane, pace on. With the booyah, that's a flex. Not human, I am from another planet. So the next exercise we're going to do is a dumbbell split squat. This is probably my hands down favorite exercise to activate the glutes on leg day. So notice my position here. So basically what I'm going to do is keep the shoulder blades tight, and typically I would say about 1.5 feet should be your space. Notice when I come down, my knee doesn't go in front of my toe, and I'm actually leaning back into my heel, focusing on my glute. So when I come down, watch my knee is in a straight line with my shoulder. So a key point to remember is your stance. I see a lot of people do these and they're basically stepping out way too far. What that's going to do is put too much stress on your hip flexor, and then also you're going to put too much pressure on your disc and your lower back. So notice when you also do this, your foot should be about 1/4 on the bench. So I typically do these about 60 to 70 pounds, but being with my toe, it's kind of hurt right now, kind of taking it easy. All right, moving on to the third exercise, we're going to do a sumo stance squat here. So initially I was going to use the risers here and hold the weight as I come down, so that's why I had the platforms, which I didn't use. But notice I'm doing a goblet squat stance here. Elbows are close to the weight, and we're going to point the toes out here. So now we're going to focus on more adductor inside of legs and the hamstring. So notice my tempo is going to change here. I'm focusing on more eccentric, so as I come down I'm focusing on slower controlled movement patterns. So on these, my tempo is 1-3. I'm focusing on 1 second up, about 3 seconds down. I'm going to hit a higher rep range here of 15, so I can really focus on taxing and overloading that muscle. And notice at the top of the movement, you want to focus on a 20% squeeze and then right back down to that eccentric. All right, moving on to the next exercise, we're going to do some hamstring extensions. By this time, those glutes should be on fire. So what you're going to do here is notice my position, my toes. I'm going to slightly point my toes out again so I can change my insertion to the inner hamstrings and glutes. And then notice my hip is basically directly above my platform here. So what I'm going to do is actually extend and reach out, focusing on stretching the hamstrings, and I want to focus on a 1 to 2 second sticking point, like isometric hold. So even though I'm not doing a lot of weight here, I'm still making those glutes work twice as hard. All right, we have our finishing move here. Time to demolish the glutes. So I chose an advanced version. Now you guys can do a regress version of this. We're basically just going to do a single leg glute bridge. Here I'm going to use a medicine ball, which requires a lot of stability, and by this time those hamstrings are probably pretty toasted. So what you're going to do here, I'm actually using my leg to create momentum at the top. I'm driving through with my heel. Notice I'm kind of struggling to hold that ball in place. Like I said, this is a more advanced movement. If you guys want to do a more regressed movement, you guys can actually go to an exercise bench and then do it that way.
All right, just got home. I am wiped out. Haven't gone that heavy in a while, but felt pretty good. Not too shabby. There was a couple movements on the split squat where I had to change my position because there was pressure on my toe, but pretty sure it's not broke, so that is the good news. So hope you guys liked the video. Let me know if you want me to make more videos like this where I break down the movement and kind of go through my routines. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't. I got more stuff coming on the way, more challenges, and I would love to hear some feedback on what you guys want me to post. So other than that, we will talk to you soon.